If you're drawn to real stories full of emotion and unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment. Your support means everything and helps us bring more powerful stories straight to you. Let's dive in. The fluorescent lights above buzzed softly, casting a sterile glow over the labor and delivery room at St. Mary's Medical Center in Chicago. Machines beeped steadily. Nurses moved around with quiet efficiency. Rachel clenched the bed rails, sweat streaking down her temples, as another wave of pain tore through her. "You're doing great, Rachel," said Lisa, the attending nurse, her voice calm and practiced. "Deep breaths, okay? Just a little more." Rachel tried to focus on her breathing, on the promise of seeing her baby boy, Liam, for the first time. She glanced over to the small couch in the corner where Ryan sat, hunched over his phone. His fingers were moving quickly, typing, pausing, typing again. "Ryan," she called out weakly. Can you just hold my hand for a second?" He looked up, startled. "Yeah, sorry. Just checking in with Mom. She wants updates." Rachel nodded, accepting the explanation, though something about his body language made her stomach churn, and not from the labor. She turned her attention back to the pain, trying to ride it out. When the final push came, the room exploded into movement. Doctors, nurses, a sudden rush of focused energy. And then at 2:47 a.m., a tiny, powerful cry filled the room. Rachel sobbed with relief as they placed Liam on her chest. Her whole world changed in that moment. His warm skin against hers. His tiny fingers curling instinctively. The pain, the fear, the doubts, they all faded for a breath of time. Ryan came over finally, camera in hand, snapping photos. But even then, something felt off. He didn't meet her eyes. He barely touched Liam. 2 days later, Rachel was recovering in her hospital bed, holding Liam while he slept peacefully in her arms. Ryan was in the shower. His phone, carelessly left on the chair beside her, lit up with a notification. She wasn't the kind of person who snooped. She'd always trusted Ryan. But instinct, sharp, sudden, and cold, pushed her to pick it up. A text preview glowed on the screen. "I miss you already. Last night was everything." From a contact named Vanessa. Rachel stared. Her heart stopped. Her throat tightened. Her fingers trembled. She opened the thread. The conversation was long, detailed, too detailed. Flirtations, photos, plans, mentions of meeting while Rachel was in labor. Time-stamped messages from the same night she had begged Ryan to hold her hand. The realization hit her like a truck. He had cheated, while she was bringing their son into the world. Ryan came out of the bathroom, towel slung over his shoulders, humming to himself. Rachel didn't say a word. She laid the phone back down calmly and looked at her baby. Liam slept, unaware of the storm that had just erupted around his tiny life. The next morning, as the nurse came in to give her discharge papers, Rachel asked her to send in a social worker instead. Ryan looked confused. "Why would you need a social worker?" he asked. Rachel looked at him squarely for the first time in days. Her voice was steady. "Because I'm filing for divorce. And I'm not going home with you." The silence was deafening. Ryan opened his mouth to speak, but she raised a hand. "Save it. I saw the text. While I was in labor, Ryan." His expression shifted, from confusion to guilt to panic. But it didn't matter. Rachel's mind was made up. She may have entered that hospital as a wife and mother-to-be. But she was walking out as a mother, and only that. Stronger. Sharper. Wait. Rachel sat in the back seat of her sister's car, Liam strapped snugly into the infant seat beside her. His tiny breaths a soft rhythm against the silence. Outside, the gray Chicago skyline blurred past through rain-streaked windows. Inside, it felt like the ground had cracked open beneath her, and she was still free-falling. Her sister, Nicole, glanced at her through the rearview mirror but didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The weight in Rachel's eyes said everything. "You sure you don't want to go to Mom and Dad's instead?" Nicole finally asked, her voice gentle. Rachel shook her head. "I need space. I need to think." Nicole nodded. You've got my place for as long as you need. It wasn't until they pulled into Nicole's apartment complex, a quiet 2-story brick building on the north side, that Rachel felt like she could finally breathe again. Nicole helped her inside, carrying the diaper bags and setting up the portable crib in the guest room. Rachel stood in the doorway, watching as Nicole carefully unfolded blankets and placed them beside a small stuffed elephant. You're really doing this, Nicole said quietly. Rachel nodded. Her lips were dry. I have to. Later that night, after Liam was finally asleep and the apartment had fallen into a tired hush, Rachel sat at the edge of the couch, phone in hand. Ryan had called 7 times. Left 2 voicemails, each more apologetic than the last. She hadn't listened to the second one. She didn't need to. There was also a text. I made a mistake. Please, can we just talk? She didn't answer. Instead, she opened her laptop and began searching for divorce attorneys in the Chicago area. Each click, each scroll, was like a step forward into a life she never thought she'd have to live. Alone with a newborn starting from zero. But not really alone. Nicole was here. Her parents were just a drive away. And Liam was everything. She ran her fingers through her hair, still tangled and unwashed, and exhaled slowly. Her body ached. Her heart ached more. But there was something else growing in the ache now, resolve. The next morning, Rachel woke to Liam's cries. Her body reacting before her mind was even fully awake. She scooped him up, whispering soft reassurances, and rocked him by the window. The early sunlight poured in, casting a golden haze over the hardwood floors. For a moment, it didn't feel like her life was falling apart. It felt like it was being rebuilt, very slowly and from the bottom up. Nicole came in with 2 mugs of coffee, handing one to Rachel. You're officially in single mom territory, she said with a half smile. How does it feel? Rachel smirked, exhausted. Like I got hit by a train. But I'm still standing. Nicole raised her cup. To standing. They clinked mugs. That afternoon, Rachel met with her new attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Diane Torres, who had handled high-conflict divorces before. They sat across from each other in a small downtown office that smelled faintly of legal pads and stale coffee. You're sure you want to file this soon? Diane asked after reviewing the initial paperwork. Some people wait. I'm sure, Rachel said, cutting her off. I want full custody. And I want to move on with my life. Diane nodded, making a note. We'll get started. As Rachel left the office, Liam asleep in his stroller, she felt the weight of her new reality press down harder. But this time it didn't scare her as much. It just reminded her of what mattered. She wasn't walking out of that building broken. She was walking out with a plan. Rachel's days began blending into one another. Feedings, diaper changes, catnaps interrupted by Liam's cries. Her body moved on instinct while her mind lagged somewhere behind. Tired, frayed, but always alert. She kept her phone on silent now. Ryan's calls had slowed, but they hadn't stopped. She had blocked his number 2 days ago. What else was there to say? He hadn't just broken her trust. He'd betrayed her at a moment when she was at her most vulnerable. The weight of that didn't disappear overnight. Rachel sat on Nicole's couch one evening, wearing the same oversized hoodie she'd thrown on 3 days in a row. Liam was finally asleep in the bassinet. She sipped lukewarm tea and scrolled aimlessly through photos on her phone, the ones she hadn't had the heart to delete yet. There it was. The selfie Ryan took right after Liam was born. Him smiling, holding the baby, pretending to be the proud husband and father. She stared at it until the image felt unreal, like it belonged to someone else's life. She couldn't understand how he'd made that choice. Not just to cheat, but to do it while she was in labor, while their son was entering the world. The betrayal ran deeper than infidelity. It was abandonment, emotional cruelty, masked by excuses and half-truths. She deleted the photo. 2 days later, Rachel took Liam for his first pediatric appointment. The waiting room was warm and full of soft baby babble, but she couldn't ignore the pairs of parents around her. smiling couples taking turns holding their newborns. She filled out the forms alone. When the nurse called her in, she adjusted Liam in her arms and stood up straight. "Dad not with you today?" the nurse asked casually. Rachel hesitated. "It's just me," she replied, her voice calm but firm. The nurse gave a polite smile, made a note on the clipboard, and led her into the exam room. The pediatrician, Dr. Kim, was warm and thorough. She examined Liam carefully and reassured Rachel that he was healthy, alert, and thriving. "You're doing a great job, Mom," she said with a smile. "Especially for someone only a week out from delivery." Rachel almost cried. Not from sadness, but from validation. It was the first time anyone had acknowledged the weight she was carrying. After the appointment, she sat in the car for a long time, hands gripping the wheel, eyes closed. The sun lit the dashboard, the world moved on outside her window, and she finally allowed herself to whisper the truth. "I can do this." That night she wrote Ryan an email. Not because she wanted to open a door, but because she needed to close one. "Ryan, I'm only reaching out to be clear. Do not call me again. Communication will go through legal channels from this point forward. Liam will be fine. He has me. I hope one day you understand the depth of what you chose to do. But I'm no longer responsible for your guilt. Rachel." She hit send, then powered the laptop down. Rachel sat in the dark, watching the small rise and fall of her son's chest as he slept nearby. The silence no longer felt like a void. Felt like clarity. Like peace beginning to take root. She was no longer waiting for apologies, explanations, or closure. She had already chosen herself. 3 weeks had passed since Rachel left the hospital. 3 weeks of finding new rhythms, of adjusting to a life that didn't look anything like the one she had imagined. Some days she moved with purpose. Other days she floated through moments in a haze, surviving one feeding at a time. Nicole had returned to work but insisted on helping when she could. She cooked, did laundry, even took Liam for walks so Rachel could nap or just breathe. Still, even with support, Rachel felt the weight of being alone. It wasn't just about not having a partner. It was about grieving the future she thought she was building. One Thursday morning, after a night of broken sleep, Rachel stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection. Her hair was tied in a messy bun, her eyes puffy, and she wore an old maternity t-shirt that hung loosely over her now soft belly. She barely recognized herself. She picked up her toothbrush, then paused. Slowly, she reached into the drawer, pulled out a compact and opened it. For the first time in weeks, she applied concealer under her eyes. Mascara. A bit of lip balm. It wasn't for anyone else. It was for her. Later that day, she put Liam in the stroller and took a walk through the neighborhood. The crisp spring air made her skin tingle, and sunlight filtered through the bare tree branches. She stopped at a small coffee shop and bought herself a latte. The barista, a young woman with freckles and a tired bun, smiled and pointed at Liam. "How old?" "3 weeks," Rachel replied. "He's beautiful," the girl said. "You look like you're doing great." Rachel nodded, surprised by how much those words meant. She stepped outside, sipped her coffee, and for the first time since it all happened, she didn't feel like the woman who'd been betrayed. She felt like a mother, like someone healing. That evening, she logged into a virtual support group for single mothers that Diane, her lawyer, had recommended. It was a quiet Zoom room with muted faces at first, but once the discussion began, the stories spilled out. There were women who had been left during pregnancy, others who walked away from years of infidelity, a few who were raising 3 kids on minimum wage. But none of them sounded like victims. They were tired, yes, but strong, fierce. Rachel didn't speak that night. She listened. She cried silently, her camera turned off. And when the call ended, she felt like she wasn't alone in the world anymore. Not really. The next morning, Ryan emailed again. "Short this time. I know you hate me. I deserve that. But I miss Liam. I want to see him." Rachel stared at the screen. She didn't know what she felt. Rage. Maybe. But there was something more complicated now. The question of co-parenting. Diane had warned her this would come. That, unless Ryan posed a danger, the court would likely push for shared custody or visitation. Rachel didn't want to keep Liam from his father out of spite. But she also didn't trust Ryan, not as a partner and certainly not yet as a father. She called Diane. "He wants to see the baby," she said. There was a pause. "Then we do it on your terms," Diane replied. "Supervised. Public space. First visit with someone else present." Rachel agreed. She would protect her son. But she wouldn't let Ryan's selfishness turn her into someone bitter. She'd rise above it for Liam. That night, Rachel held Liam against her chest. His warm body curled into hers like he belonged nowhere else in the world. The TV played softly in the background, but she wasn't watching. Her mind was already in motion, laying the foundation for something new. She would rebuild. Slowly, thoughtfully, with intention. Not to prove anything to Ryan. Not to the world. But to herself. Spring was turning into early summer, and the city of Chicago began to breathe with new energy. The parks filled with families, the sidewalks buzzed with chatter, and the scent of fresh-cut grass mixed with the occasional waft of street food from nearby vendors. Rachel found herself navigating these sounds and smells on increasingly frequent walks with Liam, the stroller a steady companion on her new journey. She was still learning how to balance motherhood with reclaiming her own life. The sleepless nights hadn't disappeared, but Rachel's resolve had strengthened. She was more than just a mother now. She was a woman rebuilding her identity piece by piece. One Saturday morning, Nicole came over early, coffee in hand, and offered to watch Liam for a few hours. "Go get some air," she said with a knowing smile. "You need it." Rachel hesitated. Leaving Liam, even for a short time, felt like stepping off a cliff. But she knew she needed this, to remember who she was outside of diapers and midnight feedings. She accepted the coffee and headed to a nearby community center where a yoga class was starting soon. It was her first time back in a studio since before the pregnancy, and the room smelled of incense and eucalyptus. As she moved through the stretches, Rachel felt the tightness in her muscles begin to loosen. Not just the physical tension, but the mental knots as well. For a brief hour, she forgot about Ryan, the divorce papers, the endless what-ifs. She was simply present. Later that day, Rachel met Diane for an update on the divorce proceedings. The courthouse was bustling, the old building filled with murmurs of arguments, hopes, and heartbreaks. Diane pulled Rachel aside quietly. "Ryan's lawyer sent a proposal," Diane said, handing over the papers. "They're suggesting joint custody with visitation rights starting next month." Rachel scanned the pages. It was more than she expected, and less than she wanted. "I want full custody," Rachel said firmly. Diane nodded. "We'll fight for it. But be prepared. Courts tend to favor both parents involved, unless there's clear evidence otherwise." Rachel sighed, but the fight wasn't new. She was ready. That evening, Rachel sat on her porch with Liam asleep in his crib nearby. The city lights flickered around her, distant sirens adding a familiar soundtrack. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Ryan. "Can we talk about Liam? Please." Rachel stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she deleted the message. She wasn't ready. Maybe she never would be. But she knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened next, it would be on her terms. As the night deepened, Rachel allowed herself a rare moment of hope. Hope that healing was possible. Hope that Liam's future could be different from the past. Hope that, even in the darkest moments, a new path could be carved. She smiled softly, whispering to the sleeping baby nearby. "We're going to be okay." The day of Ryan's first supervised visit with Liam arrived earlier than Rachel expected. The morning sun filtered softly through the windows of the community center's family room, a neutral, well-lit space designed for just such meetings. There were toys neatly arranged on shelves, colorful posters on the walls, and a small table with chairs where a social worker would sit. Rachel arrived early, carrying Liam in his car seat, her heart pounding beneath the calm she wore like armor. Nicole came with her for support, offering quiet encouragement as they waited. When Ryan walked in, His eyes met Rachel's briefly. There was something unspoken in that glance, regret, maybe shame, but Rachel kept her expression steady. She handed Liam over to the social worker, who placed the baby gently in Ryan's arms. Ryan's face softened as Liam cooed, reaching up to touch his father's cheek. For a moment, Rachel allowed herself to hope that maybe this visit could be the first step toward something better. The visit lasted an hour, under the watchful eye of the social worker. Ryan talked quietly, carefully, asking questions about Liam's feeding schedule, his favorite toys, the little milestones Rachel had been documenting. Rachel watched from across the room, her arms folded but her heart restless. The man holding her son was a stranger in some ways, someone who had betrayed her trust but was now trying to be present. When the visit ended, Ryan handed Liam back, his eyes lingering a moment longer than Rachel expected. "Thank you," he said quietly. Rachel nodded, not trusting herself to speak. That evening, Rachel sat on the balcony of Nicole's apartment, Liam asleep beside her. The air was warm, filled with the distant hum of the city. Nicole joined her with 2 cups of tea. "First visit," Nicole said softly. Rachel nodded, exhaling. It was strange, but maybe necessary. Nicole squeezed her hand. "You're doing everything right." Rachel looked out over the city lights, feeling the weight of the past weeks settle more heavily than before. The road ahead was still uncertain, and trust, if it was ever going to be rebuilt, would take time. But she had taken a step. The next day, Ryan sent a text. "I want to be better. For Liam. For you." Rachel read it twice. She didn't reply. She knew the past couldn't be erased. But maybe, with time, something new could grow. The weeks after Ryan's first visit were a blur of sleepless nights and quiet battles within Rachel's mind. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart raced, half hoping it was a sign of change, half dreading more pain. Nicole stayed close, often reminding Rachel that healing wasn't linear. "You're allowed to have bad days," she'd say. "But don't forget how far you've come." Rachel clung to that. She journaled late at night, capturing every feeling, every fear, every small victory. She wrote about Liam's first smile, his coos, the way his tiny fingers curled around hers. These moments were hers and his alone, pure, untainted by the messiness of adults. One afternoon, Diane called with news. The custody hearing was set for the following month. Rachel's stomach churned as she absorbed the weight of that reality. The courtroom wasn't a place she wanted to be, but she knew it was necessary. "I'll be with you every step," Diane assured. "We'll show the court how strong and capable you are." Rachel nodded, though inside she felt a mix of dread and determination. This was more than legal paperwork. It was about protecting Liam's future. That evening, Ryan called. Rachel hesitated before answering. The voice on the other end was quieter, more measured than before. "I know I've hurt you. I'm sorry," he said. "But I want to be part of Liam's life, the right way this time." Rachel closed her eyes, the rawness of old wounds still there. "I'm willing to try, but it's going to take time. For all of us." Ryan agreed, his voice hopeful but uncertain. The days moved forward in a slow dance between fear and hope. Rachel learned to trust herself again, her instincts, her strength, her voice. She was no longer just surviving. She was beginning to live. The early summer air carried the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming lilacs as Rachel wheeled Liam through Lincoln Park, the sunlight dappling through the canopy of trees. Liam was almost 3 months old now, his bright eyes taking in the world with a quiet curiosity that made Rachel's heart ache and swell at the same time. She paused by a bench and sat down, pulling out her phone to scroll through messages. Ryan had been consistent. Texts, calls, even a few supervised visits that had gone more smoothly than she expected. But the lingering question remained. Could he really change? Could he be the father Liam deserved? Or was this just another phase before more disappointment? Rachel's phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Diane. "Court date is set for July 12th. Make sure you have all your documents ready. We'll meet next week to prepare." Rachel exhaled deeply, the tension in her shoulders tightening. The legal battle was looming closer, but more than that, it was about what came after. The custody battle was only one chapter of their story. The real work was rebuilding a family fractured by betrayal. That evening, Nicole came over with a casserole and an armful of groceries. "You've got this," she said as Rachel unpacked the bags. "And remember, you don't have to do it alone." Rachel nodded, grateful. After Nicole left, she sat with Liam in her lap, watching his tiny hands curl around her finger. The thought of sharing him with Ryan still made her stomach twist, but she knew it was inevitable. She picked up her journal and began to write, trying to capture the swirl of emotions she felt. "I want Liam to have a father, but not at the cost of his safety or happiness. I want Ryan to prove he's worthy, but I don't know if I can forgive what happened. Maybe forgiveness isn't the goal. Maybe it's about acceptance." Over the next few weeks, Rachel and Diane worked tirelessly. She gathered texts, voicemails, photos, evidence of Ryan's inconsistency, but also of his attempts to be present. Diane coached Rachel on how to stay calm and focused during the hearing. Rachel also began attending therapy sessions recommended by her support group. The therapist, Mara, helped her confront the anger and grief she had buried deep inside. One session stood out. "I'm scared," Rachel admitted, voice trembling. "Scared I'll never trust again. Scared that if I let Ryan back in, I'm setting Liam up for heartbreak." Mara nodded gently. "Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. It's earned. And it's okay to set boundaries, for you and for Liam." The night before the hearing, Rachel sat on the porch, Liam sleeping peacefully inside. She clutched a photo of the three of them, taken before everything fell apart. It was a reminder of what was lost, but also what she was fighting for. When Diane arrived the next morning, they reviewed the plan one last time. "Stay focused on Liam," Diane said firmly. "The judge wants to hear about his best interests, not your pain." Rachel swallowed her nerves and nodded. She was ready. The courtroom was cold, filled with murmurs and rustling papers. Rachel sat with Diane, Liam asleep in his stroller nearby. Ryan appeared tense but composed. The hearing lasted hours. Diane presented Rachel's case clearly, emphasizing her role as Liam's primary caregiver, her stable home, and Ryan's past failures balanced by his recent efforts. Ryan's lawyer argued for shared custody, painting Ryan as a committed father trying to make amends. Rachel listened quietly, her heart pounding. When the judge finally spoke, the room fell silent. After reviewing all evidence, this court awards primary physical custody to Ms. Collins, with supervised visitation for Mr. Collins to begin immediately. "We will revisit custody arrangements in 6 months." Rachel exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. It wasn't a full victory, but it was a start. That night, Rachel sat with Liam in her arms, feeling the exhaustion and relief wash over her. She whispered softly, "We're going to be okay." And for the first time in months she believed it. The weeks following the custody hearing were a mixture of relief and uncertainty. Rachel felt the weight of the judge's decision settle like a cautious promise. A beginning but not the end. Supervised visits began, tightly scheduled and heavily monitored, and every exchange left Rachel with a complicated mix of emotions: hope, anxiety, and sometimes exhaustion. One humid July morning, Rachel woke early, Liam cooing softly in his crib. She watched his tiny chest rise and fall, the sun casting a golden glow across his pale skin. For a moment, the world outside their small apartment faded away. Here in this quiet moment everything felt possible. But the day ahead was filled with challenges. She prepared Liam for his visit with Ryan, the first time without a social worker present, but still under Nicole's watchful eye. The thought made Rachel uneasy. Trust was fragile, and although Ryan had been making an effort, the memories of betrayal whispered in her mind. Nicole arrived promptly, baby bag in hand. "Ready?" she asked with a smile. Rachel nodded, buckling Liam into his car seat. The drive to the neutral park was short but felt like crossing an invisible line into unknown territory. At the park, Ryan waited by the playground, nervously scanning the area. Liam's tiny fingers gripped Rachel's as they approached. When Ryan took Liam in his arms, the baby giggled, a sound that pulled at Rachel's heartstrings. For an hour, Ryan played with Liam on the swings, carefully watching him slide down the plastic slide. Rachel sat nearby with Nicole, pretending to focus on her phone but unable to keep her eyes off them. Ryan's face was softer than Rachel remembered, his eyes gentle as he spoke softly to their son. "You're a little champ, Liam," he said, laughter in his voice. Back at home later that night, Rachel sat alone, exhaustion settling deep into her bones. She poured a glass of water, staring at the ceiling as memories flooded back. The texts during labor, the calls ignored, the silence that followed. But beneath it all, a stubborn flame of hope burned. Ryan was trying, and Liam deserved a father. Rachel's therapy sessions became a sanctuary. Mara helped her untangle the mess of emotions: fear, anger, guilt, and love. Slowly, Rachel learned to let go of the impossible, the perfect family she once dreamed of. Instead, she began to accept a new reality. Imperfect, complicated, but hers to shape. One afternoon, Rachel received a message from Ryan. "Thank you for letting me be part of Liam's life. I know I have a lot to prove." Rachel paused before replying, fingers hovering over the keyboard. She typed carefully, "We'll take it one day at a time." The city's summer heat pressed on, but Rachel felt a cool determination growing inside her. She was no longer the woman shattered by betrayal. She was a mother fiercely protecting her son, a woman learning to trust again, not blindly but cautiously. The late summer air in Chicago was thick and humid, pressing against the windows of Rachel's small apartment. Inside, the quiet hum of the city mingled with the soft sounds of Liam's breathing as he napped in his crib. Rachel sat at the kitchen table, a stack of papers spread before her. Custody agreements, schedules, and notes from Diane. The fight for Liam's future was far from over. Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. "Can we talk about Liam's schedule?" She hesitated, then replied, "What time?" An hour later, Ryan arrived at the park, this time without supervision. Nicole was there too, keeping a careful eye on the situation. Rachel's nerves twisted in her stomach, but she knew this was part of the process, establishing boundaries that protected Liam while giving Ryan a chance to be involved. Ryan greeted Rachel with a tentative smile. "Thanks for meeting me here." Rachel nodded, folding her arms. "Let's keep it about Liam." They sat on a bench, the hum of children playing nearby a stark contrast to the tension between them. Ryan spoke first. "I want to respect your rules. I'm trying to be better." Rachel studied him, searching for honesty beneath the words. "You're welcome to be part of Liam's life, but it has to be consistent and safe." Ryan nodded solemnly. "I understand." That afternoon, Rachel reviewed the new visitation schedule Diane had drafted. It included weekend visits with Nicole present and gradual easing of supervision depending on Ryan's reliability. It was cautious but necessary. She knew the stakes. Any misstep could mean losing the limited progress made. Over the following weeks, Ryan showed up on time, followed the rules, and called regularly. Some days, Rachel caught glimpses of the man she once loved, attentive, caring, and hopeful. But trust was slow to rebuild. Rachel guarded her heart fiercely, remembering how easily it had shattered before. One evening, Nicole invited Rachel out for dinner, a rare night off. Over glasses of wine, Nicole said, "You've come so far, Rachel. Don't forget to take care of yourself." Rachel smiled tiredly. "I'm trying. For Liam." Nicole raised her glass. "To new beginnings." Rachel clinked her glass softly, a flicker of hope warming her chest. Back home, Rachel tucked Liam into bed and sat beside him, whispering promises of safety and love. She knew the road ahead was uncertain, full of challenges and setbacks. But with every step, she was learning to navigate this new chapter of her life. The cool autumn breeze swept through the streets of Chicago, rustling the fallen leaves that carpeted the sidewalks. Rachel bundled Liam in his warm jacket, his small fingers clutching hers as they walked to the nearby library, a quiet sanctuary where she often sought refuge from the chaos of her thoughts. Inside the library, the scent of old books mingled with the faint hum of whispered conversations. Rachel found a corner near the children's section, spreading out Liam's toys as he played quietly. She pulled out her phone and hesitated before scrolling to Ryan's messages. His texts had become more frequent, some filled with apologies, others with mundane updates about his life. She appreciated the effort but couldn't forget the pain beneath the surface. Later that afternoon, Rachel met Diane at a coffee shop to discuss the upcoming court review. The judge had scheduled a follow-up hearing in 3 months to reassess custody arrangements based on Ryan's progress. Diane leaned forward, her voice calm but serious. "This hearing will be crucial. It's your chance to show that you've provided a stable environment for Liam, and that Ryan's visits have been consistent and supervised." Rachel nodded, steeling herself. The past few months had been exhausting, but this was the moment that mattered most. That evening Ryan called. His voice was softer than usual. "I know I still have a lot to prove," he said. "But I want to keep trying, for Liam." Rachel took a deep breath, the weight of old wounds pressing down. "We all want what's best for him. But it has to be real this time." Ryan agreed, promising to stay committed. Days later, Rachel found herself face-to-face with Ryan at a community center parenting class they'd both agreed to attend. The room was filled with other parents, some familiar, others strangers. The instructor spoke about communication, boundaries, and the importance of consistency. Rachel felt a strange mix of emotions as she watched Ryan engage with Liam, offering gentle smiles and tentative touches. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. That night, Rachel journaled late into the evening. "The past still haunts me, but maybe the future doesn't have to be defined by it. Liam deserves the chance to know his father, and I deserve the chance to heal." As the city lights twinkled beyond her window, Rachel allowed herself a fragile hope, a belief that even in the darkest storms, there could be moments of peace. The early October sky was overcast, casting a soft gray light over the quiet Chicago neighborhood where Rachel lived. The chill in the air hinted at the approaching winter, and Rachel wrapped Liam in a thick knitted blanket as she prepared for another day of balancing motherhood and the battles that came with it. Rachel's mornings had settled into a routine. After feeding Liam, she spent time organizing her notes and preparing for the upcoming court hearing. Diane's steady support was a constant, providing guidance and reassurance when doubt crept in. Ryan's presence, however, remained unpredictable. Some days he was reliable and attentive. Other days the silence from him was deafening. This inconsistency gnawed at Rachel's resolve. One morning, Rachel received a text from Ryan. "Can we meet at the park this afternoon? I want to talk." Her fingers trembled as she replied, "Okay. Liam and I will be there." The park was nearly empty when they arrived. The golden leaves crunched beneath their feet as Liam toddled ahead, his laughter bright and free. Ryan watched him with a smile, his eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and fear. They sat on a bench, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. "I know I've made mistakes," Ryan began, voice low. "But I want to do better. For Liam. For you." Rachel studied him, searching for the sincerity she needed. "I want to believe you," she said quietly. "But actions speak louder than words." Ryan nodded. "I understand. And I'm ready to prove it." Over the next few weeks, Ryan's efforts became more consistent. He attended therapy, showed up for visits on time, and began to communicate more openly with Rachel about Liam's needs. Rachel noticed the changes but guarded her heart carefully. Trust was a fragile thing, not to be given lightly. One evening, Nicole stopped by with a surprise: tickets to a local art exhibit. "We both need a break," she said with a smile. Rachel hesitated but agreed. The night out was a welcome distraction, filled with laughter and conversation that reminded her life wasn't just about struggle. Back home, Rachel tucked Liam into bed and sat quietly, reflecting on how far they'd come. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a fragile hope taking root. The late October winds swept through the streets of Chicago, carrying with them the scent of wet leaves and the promise of coming change. Rachel was in the kitchen preparing dinner, Liam playing quietly nearby with his blocks. The soft clatter of dishes was the only sound until her phone buzzed. It was a message from Ryan. "Can we meet tomorrow? I have something important to tell you." Rachel's heart skipped a beat. After months of cautious progress, the uncertainty tightened its grip. She typed back, "Okay. Where?" The next afternoon, they met at a small cafe near the lakefront, the city skyline framed by the gray waters. Ryan looked tense as he sipped his coffee. He hesitated before speaking. "There's something I need to tell you," he began, voice low. "I've been offered a job opportunity, but it's out of state. It's a chance to restart, a fresh start." Rachel blinked, surprised. "Out of state? When?" "In a month." The news hit Rachel like a wave. The custody arrangement, the fragile routine, everything was about to shift again. She struggled to find words. "What about Liam?" Ryan looked down, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I want him to come with me. I want us to be a family again." Rachel's mind raced. Trust was still new, fragile. Was this an honest chance for their family, or another upheaval? That night Rachel couldn't sleep. She held Liam close, wrestling with fear, hope and doubt. The next day, she met Diane to discuss the news. "We'll need to petition the court," Diane said firmly. "Relocation cases are complicated, especially with custody involved." Rachel nodded. "I want what's best for Liam, but I don't want to rush." In the following weeks, Rachel and Ryan navigated the difficult conversations about co-parenting across states, schedules, and Liam's well-being. Despite the uncertainty, Rachel found strength in her resolve. She would protect Liam, no matter where life took them. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Rachel and Ryan watched Liam chase leaves in the park. The future was unclear, but in that moment, there was a fragile peace. The chill of early November settled over Chicago, crisp air biting at Rachel's cheeks as she pushed Liam's stroller down the tree-lined streets near her apartment. The once vibrant leaves were now mostly brown and brittle, crunching beneath her boots. Every step felt heavier, weighed down by the decisions looming ahead. Ryan's upcoming move out of state wasn't just a change of address. It threatened to reshape their entire lives. Rachel had spent hours researching legal options, consulting Diane, and weighing the pros and cons. The court battle ahead was inevitable, but so was the need to find a path that put Liam's well-being first. One evening, Ryan came over to discuss the logistics. The conversation was tense but honest. "I want to make this work," Ryan said, voice firm. "For Liam's sake, we need a plan. Visitation, holidays, communication." Rachel nodded, cautious but willing to listen. "We have to be realistic. This isn't easy for any of us." Over the next few weeks, they drafted a tentative parenting plan with Diane's help, mapping out schedules that balanced visitation with stability. It was a patchwork solution, far from perfect, but it was a start. Rachel found solace in her friends and therapy sessions, leaning on Nicole's unwavering support and Mara's guidance. She also focused on Liam's milestones, his first steps, his favorite bedtime stories, grounding herself in the present amid the chaos. As Thanksgiving approached, Rachel faced the holiday alone with Liam, Ryan having already moved. The small apartment was decorated with homemade crafts from Liam's daycare, the scent of pumpkin pie filling the air. Nicole stopped by with a casserole and a warm smile. "You're not alone," she said simply. That night, Rachel rocked Liam to sleep, whispering promises of love and safety. The future was uncertain, the path unclear. But one thing was certain, she would fight for Liam, no matter what crossroads lay ahead. Winter had quietly settled over Chicago, dusting the city with a thin layer of snow that sparkled under the streetlights. Rachel stood by the window, watching Liam sleep peacefully in his crib. The soft glow of the night lamp cast gentle shadows across the room, a quiet reminder of how much they had endured, and how far they had come. The past year had been a whirlwind of heartbreak, challenges, and unexpected growth. Ryan's move had reshaped their lives in ways neither of them had imagined. But through it all, Rachel had found a strength she never knew she had. The court had approved the new custody arrangement. Ryan would have extended visits during school breaks, holidays, and every other weekend, while Rachel remained Liam's primary caregiver. They had worked hard to build a co-parenting relationship based on respect and honesty, even when old wounds threatened to reopen. That afternoon, Ryan arrived for a visit. The tension that once filled the room had softened into something more hopeful, a fragile but genuine attempt at family. As Liam toddled into Ryan's open arms, Rachel felt a bittersweet pang. It wasn't the fairy tale she had once dreamed of, but it was real, imperfect, messy, and beautiful in its own way. Later, Rachel met Nicole for coffee. "We made it," Nicole said with a smile. Rachel nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Yeah, we did." Back at home, Rachel sat down to write in her journal. "This journey has taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. It's about fighting for the people you care about, and finding hope in the smallest moments." She looked around the room, the toys scattered across the floor, the framed photos of Liam's first smile, the soft blankets tucked carefully at the foot of the bed. Her heart was full,